sexual energy is connected to money. And I think it's because it's your creative life force, and how you create things, how you create your world is how you attract resources. And so money and sex and sexual energy are very interwoven.
This is Porn Talk. Here is your host, Eric Zuzak.
We welcome back Crystal Taylor, a Tantra healer coach who will help you to channel your sexual energy. And if you missed her last week, be sure to go back and listen to part 1. And we're picking up where we left off with Crystal Taylor.
I teach people, and this is taught in the Tao too, depending on your age and your lifestyle would depend on like what is going to work best for you. So if you're like some of my clients, if you're in your early 20s, you don't have a girlfriend, you have all this extra energy, and self-pleasure might be something you need for a release. But what you don't want is to be coping with it. And that's what I find a lot of times, whether young, old, or whatever, you are unfulfilled in a certain area of your life. Maybe you really do want a loved one, that you can connect with and have great sex with. And you don't have that. And then you're anxious about work, or there's just a lot of stress around, whether it's in the world or, or like in your personal life with your family. And then you're using that to cope. So usually I feel like people who have a porn addiction or masturbation addiction, unhealthy habits, they also may have issues with eating and drinking, or they'll be in indulgence in other areas too, where they're coping or spending money. So, so like all those things should be, I think, taken in account for, because I actually was taught a ritual called lingam flexing for men to help with semen retention. And you have to self-pleasure or massage yourself to your edge in order to learn how to become multi-orgasmic. And so I think it's shifting your perspective and your intentions on like using your sexual energy to cope or overindulge to the point that you're out of balance, and creating a better relationship with your body and your primal self than just worrying about like, oh, well, if you don't masturbate or you don't watch porn, you're here. Because you have people that go to extremes, right? They'll sex addicts or porn addicted, and then they go to the extreme. Okay, they don't do anything, and then they don't find in between. Because you're right, women like that little that sex drive, that primal part of yourself. I was explaining this to someone the other day. Like, I'm bisexual, but the thing that I love about being with a man, and what most women love about being a man, is that primal, sexy urge. It's like, yeah, he's gonna take me to the bedroom. You like the emotional connection, but the difference, with me being a woman, is that the man has got that extra kind of fiery thing. They just need to know how to get in touch with their feminine side too. But at the end of the day, it's like, hey, I want you to knock me out. Maybe the word, not the best word, but most women want to be completely submit and worn out and just be like, oh yes, I want to be conquered, even though they may not say it, but most women do. So you want to not rid yourself completely of that. Like, that's like, you need that part of yourself, not just to please a woman, but also just to be in touch with who you are. There needs to be a middle ground, middle path. That's right. What we learn in Tantra. Yeah.
Yeah. And getting to that middle path can be challenging when when a guy is trying to break addiction to porn.
This is true.
Can be really challenging. Tell us, you mentioned semen retention is a big thing now. Can you explain a little of that to the audience about what is semen retention?
Yeah, semen retention is just more about, I guess, like managing ejaculation, and depending on your age and your goals, you could decide that you're going to manage your ejaculation and retain your semen for, just about every time that you make love. Instead of ejaculating, you decide that you are not going to, and you're going to keep your energy. Because when most guys know, everybody knows that usually when guys orgasm and they ejaculate, they have a refractory period because they're losing a lot of vital nutrients and energy in their semen. But men, if they're healthy, usually are pretty abundant. As you get older, you need to manage it more. But it's good sometimes to just retain that energy for yourself. And at the very least, manage it according to what it is that your needs are. So that's what semen retention is. And then you could take that a step further and not just worry about retaining your semen, but becoming multi-orgasmic. And so that's being able to have non-ejaculatory orgasms. And that takes practice, and there are, methods out there to help you learn how to do that. But when you can have a non-ejaculatory orgasm, you can build on that energy and have more like a full body orgasmic experience. And that's when you start to get into like sexual alchemy practices, and like how women are able to be multi-orgasmic, even though a lot of times we need to release. Like men, instead of releasing, they can build up the energy and use that to transform their bodies, and also and then also enlighten themselves. Because really, I mean, think about it, for a man especially, if he's able to have that type of control over his energy, that's a different level of spiritual maturity and power.
Spiritual maturity and power. Spiritual maturity and power. I tell you, you're mentioning so many cool things that we could have podcasts on just some of these few topics. You mentioned sexual alchemy and using your sexual energy for enlightenment, for transformation. And that's my whole thing with working with clients is to transform that sexual energy, that channel that sexual energy, transmute that sexual energy to transform yourself and become the very best version of yourself.
Yes, that's what we want. And that's a different level of like using that energy, right? Like initially, the most primal is just to make sure that we have babies. Like that's first and foremost. Mother Nature's like, hey, we need you to make sure you still hang around here. So we need to make this as pleasurable as possible. Want you to get excited about making babies. But at some point, the next level is, okay, so now how do we use this in a way that continues our spiritual walk, that furthers our spiritual walk? And it was also designed for that as well. It's also designed to fuel your will. For those people who know about the chakra system, so you got your root chakra, and you got your sacral chakra where your sexual center is. But the next one is your powerhouse. It's your will. It's where you come into your own, and it's your confidence. And it's also very much connected to like your transformation in the hero's journey, right? So the hero's journey as a human being, when you start off as someone who's just going through, I don't want to say going through the motions, but you're born and you're just taught what you're taught. And you're doing whatever you think is whatever programs you've been fed. But at some point, in order to come into your own, I think it's called individuation. Like you have to have the drive to be able to continue that path to do whatever it is that's your special reason for being here, and having your own thoughts. And like, as you being a unique human being, that can be tough to pull away from, maybe not everything that you've been taught, but trying to figure out, what do I believe for myself through my own experience?
It is tough. It's tough.
Yeah. And sexual energy and desire can help fuel that. If you're not enjoying life, if you don't feel that kind of zest and drive that comes from your sexual energy, it's going to be very hard to go through that journey. So it's important in that aspect too. Like you said, you don't want to be the mule that's like, oh, I don't care. No, you need that. I'm excited. Life is exciting. That, when you have some really good sex, or you're in a really good relationship with this great sexual chemistry, you're like, yeah, I can go to work. There's something that motivates you because you either were pleasured or you're looking forward to pleasure again. You're excited about life, and you need that to go through this journey, this spiritual journey.
Absolutely. You said sexual alchemy. What is sexual alchemy?
I feel like I'm getting pop quizzing. No, it's a good question. Sexual alchemy for me, I think is the best way is to just speak on it from experience. So I practice a tantra called Shaktipati Tantra Guru Yoga from my teacher Tafari Kumbhaka, and he uses things he learned from Taoism, Egyptian spirituality. He used to sit under a specific teacher where that's where they focused on, and then you have the ancient Indian tantra. And so alchemizing your sexual energy is about using your physical body, using your hormones, using different practices, breath work, and even your imagination, your thoughts to I guess I'm trying to think of a better word for alchemize. It's like a science to like bring all these things together in order to transform and transmute your energy into like spiritual energy. I think they talk about that specifically in Taoism. But there's a methodology to doing it. There's a science to doing it, and so I think that's what alchemizing your sexual energy is doing. Like you're taking your primal energy, your physical body, your hormones, your thoughts, your imagination, your breath, and really all the things that are around you to support this kind of this chemical processing of like transmuting your spirit. Because I think what's so cool about learning Tantra, so I grew up as Christian, which is really, really cool too. And it helped me in my spiritual walk. But what's even cooler is when I started to learn, which was very hard for me to understand at first, because I was so compartmentalized in my mind about sex and spirit. But I learned this science that was like, there's a science to actually building your spirit. Like you have a spiritual anatomy and there are physical things that you can do to support your spiritual walk. It's not just do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this, and then like you're a spiritual person and you're strong. No, there's certain foods that you can eat. There's breath work. There's certain movements to unlock subconscious thoughts and fears. There's physical things that you can do that can help actually build your spirit and connect with the divine and make you a very powerful, energetic, spiritual person. And I'm like, oh, wow. You could actually study the science of how this actually happens. And I was a biology major. And so that's what I feel like, sexual alchemy is. I hope that was.
Oh my gosh. I've got to have you on again. I'm writing things down here. So many topics. I mean, alchemizing your sexual energy. I just absolutely love that. And breath work. I'm really big on breath work. There's
so important.
There's many different avenues for breath work. I like the Wim Hof method. And breath work has really transformed me. I mean, I can't say enough about breath work. If you're listening to this now and you want to transform that sexual energy, look into breath work. Maybe start with Wim Hof or wherever you like. And you talked about just certain foods and how that affects your sexual energy and transforming your sexual energy. And for me, like with porn, as viewing it as a bad habit, bad habits have buddies. And so if you're in the habit, if you're addicted to porn, then that habit has some other bad habit buddies. What I would often do is binge on porn. Then after going at it for so long, I would be very hungry, have a ravenous appetite afterwards for food. So I go straight to fast food, and then
it's like junk food.
Yeah, exactly. And then binge on fast food. So and then there's other bad habits, and so I would say, if you can start introducing some positive habits, like for example, a lot of guys don't take care of themselves that are addicted to porn. So maybe they don't brush their teeth very often, or maybe not at all. So to start the habit of just brushing your teeth,
Right.
And then that will
Yeah.
bring along some other habit buddies, maybe if you're brushing your teeth, you're thinking, oh, maybe I should stay away from the candy or so much soda. And,
Right.
maybe you start flossing and it brings out about other positive habits. But what do you suggest to someone that is addicted to porn? They want to stop. What's something that you would suggest to one of your clients what would you suggest?
Well, usually I start with clients and and I have to ask, like, what are your porn habits? What are your pleasure, habits? And a lot of times that's how I find out. And so I find out how often, I'm like, please be honest. Tell me if it's 2, 3 times a day. Just let me know what it is. And we set a goal to like at least try to cut that in half, if they're ready to at least cut it in half. So if you're masturbating twice a day, 3 times a day, let's try at least one. And if you're watching porn several times a day, let's try to get it down to one day and try to veer towards adult content that has some type of emotional connection, something that maybe you can watch with your girlfriend or your lover, whoever it is, man or woman, and limit the time. Because I noticed that men will go from one thing to the next thing to more and more extreme things.
Yes.
So I do that. And like you said, we'll try to, I encourage them to replace it with something that's physically exhausting. So maybe like try to go for a run or try to do 20 push-ups, set some type of physical goal that you can't do yet, and do that in place of when you have porn. That can help some, but I really learned, and you probably know this as well, that it's not about the porn. It's about
it's not about the porn.
It's about whatever you're overcompensating for. So whatever you're anxious about, just like you said, you felt empty and unsatiated. So the porn didn't even though you may have been enjoying it in the moment, it was instant gratification, but then you had to go do something else because you're still looking to be fulfilled. So the next step really is to kind of figure out what is aching you, like what's making you anxious, and helping them make the connection between, like, it's not that you're just some like creep, that just loves porn or whatever. It's men are vulnerable, especially men are vulnerable to media that kind of, really manipulates their sexual energy and takes it and uses, that against them. So it's like making them aware of that, like, that day when you had a really hard day at work, or maybe you wish you felt really lonely one particular day. And so like when you were around women and you couldn't talk to them, or, you were turned down or rejected, you went and you masturbated more that day, like helping them make the connection between like when they're really anxious and then you're making these habits, and just making them aware and making the connections. So that's usually where we start. And sometimes it takes men a while to get that.
Yeah. I like to use what's called a baseline. We come up with, on average, for a week, how often do you do it and for how long? And we look at, the PMO, the porn, the masturbation, and the orgasm, because you can work on any or all of those at once, so we come up with a baseline, and we are so on the same level here, or so, not the same level, but just same page. We're on the same page because I tell clients at the very beginning, this is not about the porn. This is not about the porn. In fact, often I'll even make it a practice at the beginning with a client. I'll say it 3 times at the very beginning. This is not about the porn. This is not about the porn. This is not about the porn. Because later in the program, they'll realize, oh yeah, this is not about the porn. the beginning, but in the beginning, they're like, what are you talking about? This is not about the porn. I'm really addicted to porn. Like, yeah, I know that, but this is not about the porn. So.
It's the same thing with everything. Like when I started to, like, in order to understand Tantra, I had to stop compartmentalizing like sex from like my spiritual self. Otherwise, it was hard for me to understand. I figured that out. And like my ancestors, I feel like, told me when I was having really hard times, like, throw everything you think you thought you knew about sexuality, just start over. And then I was like, okay. And then I started to understand things. But as I started to understand things, I'm like, oh, we just need to treat this area of our lives like we would anything else. Like, we need to make sure we're spiritually grounded. We need to nurture the side of ourselves. We need to be educated. We need to be able to talk about it during the day. It needs to be normalized to a certain extent. And just like, so like, it's not about the porn, just like relationships when people are lonely. It's not about the other person most of the time. It's about the choices you've made. It's like why you made those choices, why, you feel like you've had issues connecting or stuff. It's not about other things. It's about what's going on within you and your own needs. And sometimes you're not being supported. Sometimes you haven't had the information that you needed. Sometimes you've gone through some trauma and it's gone unaddressed. Like there's many reasons why we end up doing the things that we do. Most of us are not just like pure evil and seeking to destroy ourselves. Like,
right. Exactly. I totally agree. And the challenge with porn, you talked about being manipulated, in that your sexual energy is being used to manipulate and control you, because there are advertisers. It doesn't matter if you've never spent a penny on porn in your entire life. There are advertisers on there. They measure every click is measured, and so you are being manipulated and controlled. And like you said, it's not even just porn. I mean, just advertising in general. And so, and I've thought about this like on a global scale as well, or maybe a country, like if you look at just the United States, if you want to enslave a mass of people, what would be a great way to do it is to manipulate and control their sexuality.
Yes, because it's what we learn in Tantra and the chakra system, and it sounds like you've studied it some, is that it's sexual energy is connected to money. And I think it's because it's your creative life force, and how you create things, how you create your world is how you attract resources. And so money and sex and sexual energy are very interwoven and very interconnected. And if you can control people's desires and pleasure, because it's not,
oops, that's okay. It's gonna be audio anyway.
Okay, that was a call. You added that. Okay. But yeah, so it's like, so your sexual center, we learn in Tantra, learning the chakra system, is that where it's not just about like your genitals and them being aroused and having children, but it's also connected to your understanding of duality. It's also the place in consciousness where you make decisions, where you understand pleasure and desire. And so if someone can control and know what you desire, what you pleasure, what drives your will. Remember, we talked about the sexual center driving your will, because it literally fuels it. There's the sexual center, and then there's your Manipur, your willpower house. It's right underneath there. It's the fire that fires it up, right? So if someone can control that, your actions, your will through your desires and your pleasure, whether it has anything to do with sex or not, like, yeah, they can decide where you go and what you do. And then on top of that, it's also connected to your primal self. So you're talking about your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is the most powerful part of your mind. So you do things subconsciously, just like when you eat something that's really good and then they have all those ingredients, that get you addicted. And then it's hard. It's like, why can't change? Why I got to have 15 million chips? That's me, instead of just one. Because it's already like ingrained in you through your body, whatever they put in it, and it's connected to your subconscious mind. It becomes habitual, and that's very hard to fight.
Yes, it affects your subconscious mind, and that is, like I say, when I think on the global scale or on a country's scale, that it's powerful. It's really powerful. So but the listeners though that are listening to this right now they're obviously listening to this. They're taking action. They obviously want to improve themselves.
Yes.
So, Crystal, if someone wants to improve themselves and they would want to work with you, how would they go about doing that?
Thank you for allowing me to share my services and come with you on the podcast, because I definitely want to work with more people like your audience, people who are not just looking for a thrill or not just looking to be entertained, but really want to heal and understand this part of themselves on a deeper level. Because I was like, I know there are men out there. I know that there are much more people out there that are curious, and even people that aren't not, they desire it somewhere in their spiritual being. So they can go to my website. crystaltantricyogi.com, and you can sign up for a free consultation. And let me know that you heard about me on this podcast, Eric's Porn Talk, and I'll give you a 10% discount if you sign up for a package. I've got online intimacy coaching packages. And if you don't sign up for anything, I have a 15-minute free consultation on my website too. But if you don't sign up for anything, at least sign up for my newsletter, enter your name and information on the contact list, because I'm hoping to have some online courses and stuff coming up really soon that might interest you. I'm trying to work really, really hard on making different types of resources accessible to people, no matter where they are financially. But yeah, so that's where you can find me. You can also find me on YouTube, Crystal Tantric Yogi, and Instagram on Crystal Tantric Yogi. I'm not quite as active on social media as I used to. I'm kind of annoyed with social media right now.
Oh, I feel you. I deleted my entire Facebook account some time ago, but then I realized there is some business things I do need it for, so I am back on there. But I feel you. I really do.
I know, yeah, but there's still I lost my other Instagram page, but especially on my YouTube page, there's a lot of like the video that you saw I made that a few years ago. There's lots of little fun videos that I make that I feel like can be educational or inspiring. That even if I don't create any more additional videos, I will. But even though I'm not as active as I used to be, you can find a ton of little cute videos, that teach you about little things. So yeah.
I really think what you're teaching is so important. I mean, I really do.
You as well.
Thank you. Thank you. So if you want to check out Crystal, go to crystaltantricyoga.com. That's Crystal with a K, crystaltantricyoga.com. Check out the show.
It's Yogi.
Oh, I'm
Yogi,
sorry.
Yogi. Yeah.
Yeah.
crystaltantricyogi.com. Thank you. And the link for her website will be in the show notes. And Crystal, any final words of wisdom?
She talks about a lot. I think the only words of wisdom that I have is that you can have the life that you want.
Yes.
You deserve to have a pleasurable life, no matter what you feel like you've done that is undeserving. It's not true. You are deserving and worthy. Just believe, and it can be. And I just want to encourage you to invest in yourself and believe in yourself and go for the life of your dreams. And part of including your sexuality is a big part of that, healing that. So that's it.
Well, Crystal, it's been awesome having you on the show. You have a glow about you. And I'm going to close with this quote that says, "You are designed for accomplishment. You are engineered for success, and you are endowed with the seeds of greatness."
Wow.
Thanks for listening. If you're struggling with porn or sex addiction, reach out to Eric at powerfuleric.com.